Incremental routines. So let's continue the Supermemo course, in this case, related to documentation.
And like for this course, because no one really uses postpone. Like postpone is pretty useless.
I do disagree. There are some people who use postpone, especially auto postpone.
Because you use spread. Okay, so the advance, as I was reading on the documentation, because as always it's a little bit confusing, and please do remember, reading up the documentation is fundamental. Okay, it's not that you don't know how to use Supermemo, or maybe you're like, oh, I know how to use Supermemo. No, even the most the oldest of the users goes to the documentation, because the functions are very counterintuitive.
Okay, let me stop here. So yeah, I suggest to always check the documentation from the beginning and anytime, because perhaps, let's say mercy, or postpone, or advancing as he's doing, you won't need this at the beginning, because you're not lagging behind the scheduling, right? So let's say you spend some months and, oh man, I'm lagging behind, or I did some vacation. Now I want this for the first time. How do I do it? How actually works? And all of that. So the intention with this course is to minimize this. So the most useful stuff is covered. And then just the outliers or the edge cases will require to visit the documentation, some other videos that I did that are quite niche for that purpose, and all of that. But keep in mind that the main weakness of the documentation is that it's based on features, not by use cases. It says, okay, advancing elements is this, you can do this for topics and elements, it affects like that, this setting up to 1000 of values, you can execute advanced using subset operations, Yeah, okay, but when should I use that? What are the effects? What should be a good reason? Or how many? So let's say that 10% of my collection, could I do that? My entire collection, something that is only high priority, I will do. Or if I do exams, like he does, I only do this for exams, but they will have any consequence. There are so many questions that are not answered. So imagine, to follow the analogy of the cooking, let's say that I have a tool for cooking. Oh yeah, this goes super well to cut and slice meat in a certain way. Then to slice vegetables, to cut super thin. Whatever you want, all of the techniques and possibilities of that tool. Okay, but what recipe can I do? I don't know. Because I want to do pizza, that you can cut the slices and so on. Yes, but how do I do the pizza? How I do the dough? Oh, I can cut vegetables. Yeah, but how I do whatever recipe with cut vegetables? Do I cook them? I want them to be steamed. What will be the time? How much water do I need? Or what other tool? I don't know. I only know how to use a feature in Supermemo for more or less all of the context, but not applied in any context in particular. So yes, I can know how to do advanced elements, how to change priorities. Okay, Alt P, I can change the priority. Like, hey, that's the tool in cooking you can use. But when do I use it? In which recipes, right? I want to be able to do recipes so I finish the meal and eat the meal, or sell it if it's a restaurant, right? Do you see my point that it's not the same thing? So that's one of the massive limitations of the documentation. And I will try my best to overcome that limitation.
Like some of these functions, of the most advanced functions, are very counterintuitive. So
that's another point. Sometimes it's not because the feature is counterintuitive per se. It's how it's implemented by Wozniak or his team doesn't make sense. It's counterintuitive how it's implemented. For instance, priorities. Why the maximum priority is 0 and not 100? Or why to do that So why, for instance, in subsets, we'll see this eventually. No worries about what I say, to understand what I say now. But there's something called subset reviews, and you can see the elements in the collection in the browser view, the browser window. Is why I need to save this to a file, open a new one, and then do the subtraction or the adding or whatever. Why I cannot have both and have the result, the overlapping result, instead of saving manually to a local file, implemented like crap at some degree. That's why some of the suggestions in this course is not because I think it's best, it's because it's implemented in such a way that this alternate version works best. Or it's very bug if something also happens. There are more than 5,000 bugs that it's intended this way, but do it this way because it's safer. It's very, very likely that eventually you will trigger bugs, you have to recover from backups, and so on. And one last thing is that you don't need to search specifically in the documentation. So let me show you the, I know I'm telling this in advance, but this is an example. So that's the browser window that we will see. I understand this, what is this, right? You can press F1. And what it does, it opens the documentation of the browser. Why the browser? Because it was the active window. If I go to a different window, let me go to the stats, let's say. I always say stats, but are analysis. Then F1, I go to analysis. Do you see here? It doesn't work in every single aspect of Supermemo, but most of the windows and contexts, you will have those. But look at that. A lot of detail, but again, doesn't tell you how to interpret the graph or when this is useful to know, if you have to take action, or any of those.
You need to browse the documentation, okay? Please put this inside your head. Otherwise, your skills with Supermemo will never advance. You need...
At some degree, yes. That doesn't mean you have to. I know people who learn the basics, or the basics and enough to cover their flows. If they don't want to use PDFs, they don't do video and all of that, there's a lot of stuff you don't need to learn how to do, or languages with some components. Since your flow doesn't require that, you don't need to learn any of that as a consequence. But to some degree, you have some basic and something else, a little more than basic, and it's enough. You just don't make you don't take all of the powers from Supermemo that you could, but it's good enough. So don't take those words that, yeah, you need to know every single detail like I did and so on. And this is what I do. With this course, it's like the 90% more high-yield knowledge and flows will be covered. And then the most specific, like using Supermemo, I don't know, for procedural learning, all of that is not the average user will do that. And if you have an outliner case or a very specific use case, you can get tutoring and go to the fast track anyways. Or you will have to spend many hours. So if you want, feel free, as I did. But if you don't enjoy it, consider tutoring. Link in the description.
Need the documentation. This course is just the cherry on top of the documentation, but you have...
Then my reaction is more than the cherry on top, but still it's the surface. You still have all of the, I don't know, the cheesecake inside with all of the filling to discover by yourself at some degree. Or you can watch most of my YouTube videos, more than 400 videos, and man, I have a ton of content for free. You get a lot of knowledge and expertise from me, absolutely for free. And I calculate, last time I counted, I checked, there were 72 hours of videos overall. You could spend, I don't know, 1 hour a day for more than 2 months. So you have a ton of content.
To read the
not including this course, by the way.
documentation. Okay, I do not know everything about Supermemo. Few people do. So
I will say no one, not even Piotr Wozniak, the creator, because some fact is that since I wanted to try every single detail in Supermemo, I did this during my first year. There was like the translation registry, an obscure feature you don't need to know. The fact is that, hey, that doesn't work. It's because it was not a bug. It was never implemented to begin with. But Piotr Wozniak actually forgot the flow, forgot the key binding even for this. So no one is fully knowledgeable on the quirks and bugs and all things, because you don't use all of the features in any single aspect that they can be used. What we could say is that at some degree you're a master. You know most of it. There are very little people like that. Yes, I do agree. At least there's me. I'm not the only one. I'm one of those few. But I'm the one passionate about to do and share this to the world.
Is read up the documentation. So advanced, the interval range here.
Yeah, and here is the more or less everything to cover about this topic. So please, even if you watch my videos, my guides, that doesn't mean you don't ever check the documentation. It will be for the 10% remaining. The outliers, the edge cases, but still there's something. Nothing but to add for now, and see you in the next video.